The Aussie NFL Fantasy Show would like to acknowledge the traditional land owners and the leaders past, present and emerging of Ngunnawal, Ngambri and Darawal countries where we are working from today. This always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
But we've established right on now that I probably need to retire from hosting, hand that job to Manjot, and then I need to ask really nicely if I'm allowed on his show.
It was one. This is me. This isn't me shitting on Taylor for not starting Dion Johnson.
I feel like I somehow start talking before you even introduce me about something. But
look, Matt, if you have a briefcase somewhere,
op shop, 100%. I can get one from an op shop for like $10.
Like I said, apparently the gulls just decide to have sex around me. Apparently it's the brothel around my car.
I wonder if now every Coles car park Taylor goes into, he's going to have that moment where he just gets transported back to Coffs Harbour.
This is the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show.
Yeah, I ate that shit for breakfast, all that pressure, so...
He's going to have an absolute field day going through this.
Whether your fantasy team has been robbed of fantasy points by a star player laying a total egg, or you've been the victim to a high-risk player being injured at work, you need the right advice. There is only one place to go when your team or your player need representation in the court of public opinion. Make time with Manjot Melly, Public Defender.
We've got a whole new approach to how we're doing this Public Defender segment. One thing I like about this segment is it has evolved as the season has worn on.
Every week.
We had an idea of what it could be, but we didn't really know how it was going to work out. And the more we do it, the more we find out how it's going to work. And we put Aaron Rodgers in front of the court of public opinion last week, trashed the hell out of him. Manjot did his best to say, hey, stay in the flames. It's not all doom and gloom. And he had some deliverables to try and meet to try and keep himself out of prison. Did anyone catch that game, by the way? Commanders and Packers?
Oh, barely. Barely on Red Zone. Look, can we play that vision from last week? Can we see what the sentence was?
Yeah, look, I've got it notated that we were needing 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you're Davis Mills, that's what you did last week. But, not everyone's as in the lofty heights of fantasy relevance like Davis Mills. So, a nobody like Aaron Rodgers, who's never done anything in his whole life, wouldn't know him if he stepped outside of his own lounge room. Not expecting him to do anything. What did anyone catch what his final stat line was? Because it
was 2 touchdowns to Aaron Jones and a couple 100 yards, and that's it.
So
did he even get to 2? Did he get to 200? I thought he was
he got to 194. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
There it is, 194. Got it.
And even that, he was sort of straight on 150 for pretty much the whole second half. It was just one of those things he just couldn't get anything going. And I don't think he got those 40 extra yards still right near the end.
Yeah.
It's sort of weird because he has only thrown 40 attempts in one game so far this year. And I just kind of really thought that once they fell behind in that game, here it comes. Here it comes. Here we go. Fourth quarter. And then when Lazard wasn't there, it's like, well, this is over. And I just had no faith he could do it after that. And is it his fault? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But either way,
they haven't even got the run game going either. It's not like they're just smashing home the running game and that's why he's not passing. They're not getting anything going anywhere.
Yeah, it's goddamn. So bad offense is a bad. I think Rodgers and LaFleur, they're having a ton of issues, ton of drama. I covered a bit on Good Egg Gridiron. I ran about Aaron Rodgers already last night, the night before this recording. So, look, man, I'm fully off the Aaron Rodgers train at this point in his career. I think he's better off retiring after this year than playing on. It's just, man, it's too much baggage with that dude, Aaron Rodgers. He's never winning another Super Bowl at this point. It's just, man, he's a ton of baggage, too much. And look, him and LaFleur, I think they're going to go for a him and McCarthy sort of phase, like Rodgers McCarthy. I think that's the sort of phase they're going through right now. It's up to LaFleur to freaking survive that because it's tough. It's tough out there. And I think, look, Only hope I have for Rodgers if they sign OBJ. Even then, Odell, is he really gonna be the same dude after an ACL tear? We don't know. So that's the only hope I have for Aaron Rodgers right there.
Or
if
they
you only
trade
had
for
to do
DJ
it for
Moore.
2 months, then that would be all right. But God, yeah, the DJ Moore thing, I don't know. I've seen enough places
Yeah,
where
DJ.
they're saying that he's probably a piece that's got to stay because he's young enough that he probably needs to stay for whatever they're building. I think poor DJ Moore, after he's just watched everyone else leave, Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey both on the far coast. Minutes later, and there's poor DJ Moore looking out the window going, "Oh, guys, take me with you."
Always a SpongeBob meme.
Yeah, I've seen that SpongeBob meme everywhere. Thinking what he wouldn't have given to just fold up and put himself in one of their suitcases, stow away.
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good, the SpongeBob one as well, where it's like him and Patrick, and it's like watching Robbie Anderson and CMC get traded. Or I think actually it was just Robbie Anderson. It was like watching Robbie Anderson fight with his coach and get traded the next day. And it's like, write that down. Try and get himself traded.
That was a good one too, both of them.
That was great. And then they come out and beat the Buccaneers, who had former client of mine, fucking Tom Brady.
I'm glad we put Brady in prison already.
And former, or also we got to announce it at this point. Former top 10 wide receiver Mike Evans.
Wow.
I'm off it. Mike Evans, you're no longer top 10 wide receiver. If you're dropping that shit, I bet me and Maddie, we watched that shit live and we'd be like, I could have caught that. I reckon any wide receiver in the world, like a 5-year-old kid, they'd be like, I could have caught that easily.
Hands like a digital clock.
That was terrible.
I like that he not only dropped it, he dropped it so far in front of him that it bounced back to him like it was an Aussie rules bounce. And then he just fucking threw it to the crowd. He's like so disgusted. It was so good. Mate, yeah, what's doing with them? Anyway, the Buccaneers are a mess and Tom Brady is too. But yeah, it's everything that we used to know seems to not matter anymore. Because I mean, those two guys were just talking we're talking pre-game how they should be. Their punishment should be that Tom Brady should have to move in with Aaron Rodgers' family, and Aaron Rodgers should have to move in with Tom Brady's family. That would fucking sort them out. But look, the last week we put Aaron Rodgers up with the test of just being like, right, if you can't do it this week against the shittiest passing defense in the universe, then you're dead to us. And sorry, Aaron Rodgers, you are now getting banished to Port Arthur for the rest of your life. I'm afraid that's it. Hard labor in the most remote outpost in the whole colony. So that's it. See you, mate.
He's gone.
See you, wanker.
But that means that it's time to drag out somebody else who's had public opinion smear thy name. And I, as always, to the prosecution and to Tay, who's going to tell us all about who's coming in shackles with a ball and chain on this week to be put up against the voice of public opinion for Manjot to defend. Who have you got?
This guy has been sending us all to the pits of misery, this guy. It's Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts stains.
I was waiting for a shits joke, but as soon as I'm like, if this is Pitts, it's going to be a shits joke. Giving us the shits,
mate, that was the low-hanging fruit, which he probably wouldn't even catch. Nah, look, I wanna have a massive go at this guy. I really do. That's my go here as the prosecutor.
Right.
But I really, really hate this team, and I hate them deeply. Just the way that they play. Yeah. They don't give the guy a chance. And I know this is more the defense's go, but this team, and look, this still goes to the prosecution, because even if I feel bad for the situation that Pitts is in, it still doesn't bode well. Like, we can't defend him, because if he's still got the same quarterback moving forward or the same coach in the same situation, he's just going to keep playing like shit. And whether it's his fault or not, we still have to work out for fantasy whether anything is going to change around him. Sometimes it's not just the player and what he's doing, it's the situation around him. They threw 13 fucking times last week. 13. Oh, they must have been in front the whole game and ran it. No, they were down 35-17. They lost. Actually, I think it was worse. I think they actually kicked a field goal near the end. They were down by 20, 21 points, and they thought, how do we get this back? Arthur Smith, let's really establish the run here. We really need to have sustained 9-minute drives to really get this points back. And that's the way that Atlanta play. They don't even give a shit. Everything is the first drive of the game. They do not care if they're up by 20. They do not care if they're down by 20. And there is just no pass attempts. 13 and 14 pass attempts in the last 2 weeks. That is deplorable. You could have an 80% target share of that and you get 8 or 9 targets. It's disgusting. He has no chance in this team. But again, whether it's his fault or not, that's not up for discussion here. This guy is terrible right now. He is probably the biggest bust in fantasy football this year. That hasn't come from injury. Honestly, this guy was getting taken in the 3rd round and he's tight end 22 on the year. Here's some notable players that are in front of him. Daniel Bellinger, Herb Smith, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant, Will Dissly. There is 2 Seahawks in front of him. Evan Engram, Hayden Hurst. There's God knows how many I just picked out.
Is Cody Parkinson in front of him too? There could be 3 Seahawks Titans.
Possibly. It is absolutely disgusting what this guy has put up. This guy, he's a magic number of 26. This guy has only gone over 26 yards once this season, 26. And he was a 3rd round pick. It doesn't even matter if it's a tight end. You expected way more out of this guy. We all knew that it was, tight ends obviously take a little while to break out. I get that. But everyone picking him in the 3rd round, even people trying to buy low on him, are expecting more than 26 fucking yards. And I know it's a shit situation for him, but that is the situation he is in moving forward. I don't see anything changing, so I don't know how anything gets better for this guy, even though he's talented. I rest my case.
That's a quick note I want to mention before moving it over to the prosecution. Your claim about the low targets and a great share of low targets. This is just a number that comes from that. 5 targets last week represents 38% of target share.
Which sounds great.
It's about the target share I used to get the Astros, to be honest, mate. Anyhow, so that was just an aside. That was just for fun. I'd like to offer opening statements here to the defense. And, mate, I'm interested in what you got here because I think there's a few things I would lean on if I was in your spot.
Look, first off, Arthur Smith, do you really think every Falcons running back runs exactly like freaking Derrick Henry?
Exactly.
Man, you're the fucking offensive coordinator of. Sorry, firstly, Your Honor, I apologize for my language. I shouldn't be using that sort of language in the court.
I don't apologize.
Yeah, you can't say Derrick Henry in my court.
Yeah.
Wash your mouth out. No
All
saying
right.
Derrick Henry.
Okay, there we go. Washed.
Very good. I'll wash it out with Pepsi too, so we're all good.
Yeah. So look,
Shit, Mark.
let's be honest here. Are any of these Falcons running backs like Derrick Henry? No, not even Cordero Patterson's like Derrick Henry, and
He's not
he's
even
pretty
there.
good. He's a pretty good football player. Number 2, I reckon the end of the road for Marcus Mariota is coming soon, and here's why. There's a 2-edged sword. So Marcus Mariota can play good and he can play very bad, and both are good for Carl Pitt. Because and hear me out, because that sounds like, how can he do good and bad and play, and that'll be good for Pitts? Well, first off, if he's playing really good and he's going up against his next 3 teams, he's going up against are the Panthers, the Chargers, and the Panthers. So look, he's got 2 Panthers games in the space of 10 days, 11 days, because the second was a Thursday game. So he's actually got a very good matchup twice in 10 days with Kyle Pitts, and especially that Thursday night game when you have defenders having low energy. A guy like Kyle Pitts, he can be a very big play on a Thursday night game against a shit team like the Panthers, who have not done anything this season. I think Kyle Pitts, that's the guy I want to see. That's the game I want to see him, is in those 2 Panthers games, especially. I'm gonna hinge on those if I'm the Falcons, if I'm a Kyle Pitts fantasy owner. I think him going up against that Panthers secondary, I don't know about Jeremy Chinn's sort of status, but it's not looking good for the Panthers sector. I mean, they've got JC Horn. JC Horn's pretty good, but Chin, he's got to be the guy, and he's on injured reserve still for a couple of weeks, I think. So yeah, it's not looking good for Chin. If he's not there, then Kyle Pitts could have a good day. But the thing is, they actually need to learn how to throw the ball and not like throw it 13 times when you're down 20 against the Bengals, because they could have really done something against the Bengals with Pitts, but they didn't. So that leads on to the second point. If they're just running too much and not passing it all, and if Mariota's trash at passing, you know who's there? Desmond Ridder, their rookie. Throw him in, and Pitts is the safety blanket, and he's actually a valuable fantasy tight end again, especially in PPR, when you can get at least 6 to 7 catches off him per game. That easily is good enough for his value, no matter how many yards he gets. He's easily getting 10 points per game at that point with a guy like Ritter. So that's my two main arguments. You have Mariota play good and actually use Pitts, or he plays bad, Ritter comes in, he has to use Pitts as a safety blanket. Either way, Pitts can be a good fantasy tight end still. And gotta remember that tight end is still tight end. It's a terrible fantasy position that anyone can break out at any sort of time. And I think this is the time where Pitts, if he can be the guy somewhere. And also, there's a possibility he could get traded to another team, but that's very distant, I think. But we've seen crazy in the NFL, like Christian McCaffrey recently. But look, Kyle Pitts, if he can get a sort of trade like that, a sort of offer, I think my lawyers might be talking to his dad to release a mixtape of Mariota missing wide open Pitts. We did the same for DJ Moore. So far hasn't come through, but the money just wasn't paid enough by DJ's dad. So
jokes on Kyle Pitts' dad. All he's going to see is tape is Mariota handing off to Tyler Algier.
I think so. That's
38% of the time he's passing to Pitts.
All the freaking tape he's seen. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have to sift through for a bit to find those passes, though, isn't he?
It's gonna be too much work.
It's a bit of tape.
Yeah, but he is making the most of the targets he's had, Pitts. So he had 3 for 5 last game against San Francisco. Had 3 for 3. He had 1 for 4 against Cleveland. Not good enough, but
that ain't good.
We don't. I mean, targets.
So it was just so funny that you started that with he's making the most of his targets. Started with 5
targets. Sorry,
he didn't get very far before he hit a 1 for 4.
Look, he had a 5 for 8. He had a 5 for 8 against Seattle. 87 yards.
That was his game.
Yeah,
that was
like 13 points.
That's the game. See, if he's playing against somewhat trash defenses in Seattle and doing that, I think he can do the same or similar against.
I think even London had.
I can accept that evidence. Yeah, he did last time he was in London. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can accept that as good evidence in terms of playing against defenses where you might expect him to have a good game because the defense is prone to struggle against tight end. This year, because we haven't seen Carolina struggle against tight end, it's a bit harder to eat, but they are missing a couple of key players in the defense now who they haven't been missing up until now. So that's kind of a compelling point.
My worry about matchups, I was just going to say, like, I find it hard to even know what a decent matchup is because they just run in any situation. And, like, you even saw them against Tampa. Like, everyone knows that you pass on Tampa. Like, you do not run against that D-line. Oh, Atlanta does. They don't give a shit. They just seriously will run against anyone in any situation. And it makes me wonder, like, what a good matchup for Atlanta is. Like, I think the whole Desmond Ridder thing needs to happen. Like, I actually think that is the way forward because I don't know in what scenario with Mariota at quarterback and Arthur Smith just thinking they can win games by just running it 700 times. I don't know where, like, Mariota's even going to get a chance to even show if he's shit or not. Yeah. He's just never going to pass.
Yeah, 33 attempts in week 1 and over 20 again, I think, in week 2. But then it's been nosedive. Yeah. Look, so we've seen that Mariota can have success with tight ends in the past, right? Because you've had Delaney Walker and Jonnu not be complete pass in years gone by with with Arthur Smith as the O coordinator and with Mariota as the quarterback. So is that something that you think is a worthwhile thing to try and hang the hat on there as the defense man shot?
Yeah, I think that's a compelling case. Must thank the judge for giving me an extra leg up there.
Where's the
question-
play action, man?
Yeah.
Arthur Smith,
Yeah.
you did so much play action. Just do some of that.
I think he's just
On a small target base as well, because I mean, how many games did Tannehill have? Like 12 passes or whatever.
And they were just so efficient.
And they would-
like 9 of them would beat AJ Brown, and like 2 of them would just be like 100-yard fucking yaks.
Yeah, and that's it. Because they'd hook him in by getting him up for the run, and then it would just be AJ Brown against a safety. You'd have to scarp a 40 yards to try and catch the bugger. So look, I think there's probably ways to go both ways, but where do we set the opportunity for this to be a successful week for Kyle Pitts? Because the new format here is that we need to give the guy the opportunity to go to work, and we've seen him have 10+ point games in PPR just twice this year, and one of them by 10+. He didn't break 11, but he broke 10. So it's that's a low base to be working from. But what do we consider success? I'll get you to both put in your bid on that, and we'll work out where the ground in the middle is. Taylor?
Maybe like 5 for 50. Like I got to see something. Like I'm not after him to have like some ridiculous breakout. I just want to see him with some targets. I want to see Atlanta. Obviously, it's not Atlanta on trial. It should be, but in general, like if I just see that Mariota just passes a bit more, it make you feel better about Pitts. And if he's catching 5 out of 7 or 8 targets for 50 yards, I'd at least feel better moving forward that there's a roadmap for him. So, like you said, 10 PPR points, 5 for 50. I think that's probably a baseline.
And for the defense, where would you want to see that line put?
I reckon it's either 5 for 50 or it's something like I'd say 5 for 30 with a touchdown or 30 something yards.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah, getting a touchdown on the board even. I think that's
for sure. If he
fair
gets a
line.
touchdown and he's less than 50 yards, you're still gonna give it to him, aren't you? Because
I mean, that's the same amount of points. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Does the
that
30
sort of
make you feel
10
worried though? Like, because the touchdown's a bit fluky, does the 30 really instill
Yeah.
a lot of confidence in the owner?
I mean, good enough for me if he's getting 10 points a game, and getting a touchdown on the board.
How about we go 12 points, but it can come anyway.
Yeah, like so 5 for 30. We're saying 5 catches, 5 points. 30 is so 8 total, plus the touchdown is 14. That would be his best game of the year.
So how about 12 full PPR points?
That's right in the middle, because Taylor's saying 5 for 50 is 10 points, and Manjot's saying, hey, 5 for 30 and the touchdown's 14. So if we say 12 points, however he gets it, we're going to say,
Yep.
He can do that. We could probably keep rolling him out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
All
fair.
right. Let's see if he can do it. That was an interesting session. I like how every week we're morphing this a little bit more, and I can't wait to come back next week and just see if he's done the right thing by the public, and if Manjot successfully negotiate his way into a defendable spot where Kyle can now go out and show us.
Yeah.
It's an interesting segment because I think every week now too, we're not going to be able to pull up guys who've just been disappointing all year. This is probably one of the few who are left who we can do that for, and it's going to become guys who started out with all the land of milk and honey, who then all of a sudden start to disappoint you, and you have to defend whether they are still worthy, I think. But it'll be interesting to see where the segment goes, and especially next week, because next week between the three of us, there's a bit of chaos coming up on the calendar, and there's a lot more questions than we have answers right now. Wow. Okay. Kyle Pitts, good luck. I can't wait for this. This is my favorite segment every week.
Most
Starts of
listened
the
to.
week. Let's fire it up.
I want to defend you. Your matchup against the Lions is going to look great this week.
I want to talk about this guy. He has been dog shit.
I think I'm pretty happy at this stage to turn the witness over to the defense.
The Vikings were so dumb on Monday Night Football, Your Honor. He's going to go like 2 years or something.